All right, it's live. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our Facebook Live Friday. And today we have Victor Ung from victorung.com. And he is a cannabis wellness coach and also an emotional intelligence coach. So today we're going to focus on that because I know there's so many things going on right now that can bring up a lot of emotions, and how do we deal with that? Victor is going to show his expertise and coach me live on that. So, and can't wait to start. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited, and I really appreciate you for doing this, for
Oh,
being open and vulnerable and allowing and showing others what it means or what it looks like. So yeah, thanks.
thank you. Yeah, it'll be great. Yeah, so I guess the topic that I'm going to focus on, because there's so many parts of emotional intelligence, right? And for me, it's more about people pleasing, which I know also relate to a lot of people, in
Mhm.
especially the Asian community. I think people pleasing for me, it's like if I say, for example, I'm upset or I don't feel good with a certain situation, I will shove those feelings and suppress it for the betterment of the collective,
Right,
right?
right.
Um, because otherwise, then I'll feel like impulsive, irresponsible, and all that, which sometimes is true, right? But then I also let people cross my boundaries, and that
Yeah,
hurts my relationships, friendships, work, everything. So I think it's
right.
an important thing to address. So yeah.
Yeah, this is a great topic and very relevant for the Asian community, even for myself as well. And Yeah, we can definitely dive in. I guess I'm curious then,
Hmm.
as we start into that topic, like,
Yeah.
was there a recent experience or something that really created this as a theme for you, and why you want to start addressing this and look at it?
Well, this has always been a big thing. Whenever I need to set boundaries, I will feel like I'm being too much, so I just don't say anything. Or some situation comes up and it's uncomfortable for me, then I'll be like, I'll suck it up and just do it anyways, type of thing. So that's kind of like a general theme that has been going on like every day, not every day, but like majority of my life.
Yeah,
And so I can't say there's like a specific example that I can think of
right,
per se.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's definitely a just a big topic. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's a huge
trying to
topic. It's hard.
understand, like,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of
It's
where
hard
to.
to break it down, right?
Right,
Um,
so, like.
okay, so maybe this. So I was okay. I have a bit of a social anxiety sometimes.
Hmm,
Okay, so say for example, I need to go into an environment where there's going to be a lot of people, right? Because
right,
I'm towards like the introverted side. I could hang out with people that I know that I feel comfortable with, but it's like a bunch of people. Then I'm like, ah, I feel like I need to perform. I
gotcha,
need to be a certain way to please them,
right,
right?
right,
So then they will accept me, or then I would not feel left out, or I won't be awkward, like type of thing.
right.
So that's, I don't know if that example would be good enough.
Well, yeah, so what I hear then is that the people pleasing does affect, just how you communicate yourself
Yeah,
in certain environments, especially social settings.
right.
Um, is that relevant to then being online? Like, how does it feel right now to be, like,
Yeah,
so open to
right,
the internet
right.
right now and having
Yeah,
everyone
it's
watch?
interesting because online I don't have that fear for some reason.
Okay.
Because I feel like it's like behind a screen.
Yeah, yeah,
And I don't know, like people are not actually present for me to feel their energy.
gotcha.
But
Yeah,
when I'm actually physically there with people, then I'm like, ugh, like almost like my insecurities come up. And it's
yeah.
like, oh, am I good enough? Like, am I, contributing enough value? Like things like that. But in front of a camera, for some strange reason, like that goes
Okay.
away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Which is
interesting.
great because
Right.
they allow me to
Right.
do what I can do. But
Yeah. Well, and again, I really appreciate you for even doing this right now, right? Like
Uh,
to like have everyone just, watch through what you're struggling
right.
right now. Um, and so when you're thinking about in-person settings, then
Mhm.
um, you know, and we can start with you mentioned having a bigger group setting.
Yeah.
Kind of tell me more about like what's going on for you in your body, in your
Mm.
emotions, what you're feeling when you're starting to approach that sort of situation.
Yeah. Um, I think the first thing I do is that like the build up of insecurity of like I am not good enough.
Mm,
Because I feel like I'm good at telling stories, but I'm not good at interacting with people.
okay.
Like the banter, right?
Yeah.
Like I judge myself for like, oh, maybe I don't think fast enough, or like,
Mm,
all these things.
mhm.
And then I feel like, oh, then what I'm saying maybe not be fun enough or not be like smart enough, like all these like
Yep. Yep.
not good enough. It's like starting to surface. And so when I do that, then I freeze or I become more awkward. Then I like in my head, I'm like, what should I say next? Like, what should I do? And then I just become like inauthentic, right? In a way. And here we are trying to be more authentic. That's why I'm doing this
Right.
coaching with you. Right. Which is really ironic, but I guess we all go through that process. So yeah, that's kind of like what's going on in my head. And then around my chest area, I literally would have like a faster heart rate, and I'm
Yeah.
just really internalizing everything. So I would usually like not frown, but I wouldn't smile as much. I'm not enjoying the moment. I'm just
Mm,
like thinking.
right. Right.
So that's kind of
Right.
like killing the vibe.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like like your body's kind of in a way killing the vibe, right?
Right,
Like
right.
the
Like
the
energetically. Yeah.
chest feeling, tightens up, and
Yeah.
then that gets into your head, and
Yeah.
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 Do you when you're starting to feel that energy,
Mhm.
is there like is that while you're approaching the
The
meetup
crowd
or
or yeah.
whatever, the crowd, or is it like in conversation, or yeah.
That's a good question. I think usually it happens beforehand, not even before I meet the crowd or
Yeah.
people. It's literally just in my head. um, yeah, like before I actually go to the event, like I freak out inside, but I pretend to be cool. And when I get there, it's usually okay, to be honest with you. The nerves goes away, but depends
Yeah.
on who I'm with as well. If I feel intimidated because the people there are like have high credentials, for example, or they're more professional, whatever the setting might be, then I'll get totally internalized and just like shitting all over myself like inside. But if it's like a casual setting, it's like whatever, then I'm like just having fun. So it depends.
Hmm. Yeah. And so I hear that there's uh a the context matters
Right.
for you.
Yes. Yes.
The
Yes. Yes.
context of the group,
Yeah.
and what it's for, the type of people that are
Right.
there.
Right.
Um, and then
Yeah.
it sounds like once you're there though and able to
Just
engage and
yeah.
interact,
Then
you
I'm
start to
fine. Yeah.
relax, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having that said, is there a
Mhm.
certain, when you're thinking about the context or the type of people
Mhm.
that are going to be in these settings,
Mhm.
and coming back to the people pleasing, is there a certain type of people or group of people that you like to please more so than others?
I think smart people.
Mm.
Because I think my insecurity is coming from that I didn't specifically come from like the doctor, lawyer, engineer
Right.
path, which is a
Yep.
lot of Asians, right?
Yep.
And because I'm a flight attendant, so it comes from a very different perspective. Then
Mm.
this is where the unconventional thing comes in. It's like I don't feel like I belong per se,
Yeah.
because everyone else is going that path and I'm not. But in a way, it's cool. But in a way, I feel left out. Like it's weird.
Yeah.
So then it's like, oh, they're more professional. They have like, a higher degree. Then I feel like, well, what I'm saying might not be smart enough or
Mm.
knowledgeable enough in order to contribute anything back. Which I know is also not true because I have a lot of travel experience that can be interesting. Um, but it just more like initially that like insecurity is popping up in my mind that sometimes can paralyze me
Yeah.
um, into enjoying myself in the moment. So
Mm. Well, what's going on for you right now as you express that?
mm,
Maybe in the
what's going on
body,
right
anything
now?
that you're feeling?
Um,
How do you feel kind of
how do I feel now? Honestly, I feel pretty good because I've actually internalized this already.
okay,
And so
great.
it's kind of like, oh, just letting it out.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
don't per se feel insecure right now, but it's just more like if I were to imagine a scenario of me like having to go to a group, then that feeling would pop up again.
yeah.
Yeah, and just how do I numb or not listen to that voice?
Yeah, well, that's actually the what I was gonna get curious about as well is, as what is that ideal state that you'd like to be in then when
Mhm.
you do approach a group and when there's
Yeah,
smart people in the room,
right,
you find yourself wanting to please them again, you find yourself comparing, not
right.
say, like using a lot of not enough,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
What is that ideal state then for you as you approach
right.
that next time?
Right. My ideal state would just be authentically myself, honestly. What else is there? Like to just have fun and be in the moment and just offering, like, I guess, a different narrative, the unconventional side,
Right.
right? Where people don't really get to see that part because of my job. It's quite different. And also the experience that I had growing up and, like, I guess, like, things that I can offer that are different from the norm,
Mm.
which it should still be a value.
Yeah.
But sometimes because it's so different, then I judge myself for being different. But at the same
Right.
time, it's cool that it's different. Like,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's just
Interesting.
like being
Yeah.
at ease with myself for okay to be different.
For being different. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. To not have to feel like you fit in or
right,
to please them,
right.
right?
And that it's okay to just carve my own path, the whole channel.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, do you so in the are there other feelings or emotions that come up when you are feeling different? Like what comes up when you don't feel like you belong?
Right. Um, Definitely a little bit. I feel guarded,
Mm.
like I need to protect myself almost, like a protective mechanism
Yeah.
of needing to be independent because it's like then shielding myself from being judged by others because I'm different, right? So it's almost like an ego thing. It's like, oh, okay, like I'm putting up a wall, and when I put a wall, then I'm like again pretending to be cool, like
Yeah.
type of thing. So then it becomes more cold and distant.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of like one part. But then the other part would be like I'm just talking about more the negative or shadow aspect of myself. There's definitely many good parts, but the shadow aspect, another one would be like almost like trying to prove myself that I need to be like, oh, let me tell you my story because um, because of that, I guess self worth or the lack of self worth, not feeling I'm good enough, and needing to kind of like boast my achievement or experience. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. So what I heard then, and let me know if this, isn't accurate, but there is um, the desire uh, to show like your worth or to
Mhm, mhm.
prove that you're good enough
Right.
in a way is getting in the way of what you want to do, which is to be
Yes.
authentic and to
Yes.
be, you
Exactly.
know, to really show like what your true self.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time I can do that when I don't have that internalized voice of insecurity.
Yeah.
Like when I'm truly like I don't care, then I'm just like being truly authentic. But it just whenever that like anxiety comes up, I need to like perform to a certain standard that it
Mhm.
imagined in my head. Nobody ever said that I have to. It's just a bar that I set for myself. Then I become like, I need to like
Right.
people please now.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hear again, it's like certain situations that do
Mhm.
that, certain
Yes.
contexts, certain
Yes.
people
Yes. Like
that
whenever I feel like I don't measure up to a certain
yeah,
group of people, then I'm like, oh, all right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so what let's see, there's a couple of questions I have in when you mention like measuring up as well, it
Mhm.
does make me curious about like what success means to you or
Right.
what value means to you.
Right. Right.
What yeah.
Yeah. So success previously, now this is changing. Previously, it meant that I have to be smart. So I
Yeah.
think that's the root of all of it is I always don't feel like I'm smart enough because of the cultural not well cultural narrative of what Asians should be, but because I don't fit into that, then I feel like okay, then I must not be good enough, right? But then um, also success also means having certain jobs. Again, it's the same
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't fit into that, then I feel like I don't measure up.
Mm.
But at the same
Yeah.
time, it's interesting because it's like now from the other angle, it's like, no, I'm able to like now I'm kind of reframing what success means because I'm just like walking my own path and carving my own way and I'm having fun and happiness and
Yeah.
enjoying the process is success, right? And so now I'm kind of answering my own question.
Yeah.
Of like or that whole limiting belief of or
Right.
not feeling good enough because it's like right if I go into it thinking that I don't measure up then because I don't feel successful but then what the success means to me but if I now understand that I am successful in my own way I don't need to prove anything kind of like that. I just answered my own question.
There it sounds like you did. Yeah, how does that feel to express that or
Yeah, it feels good.
identify that?
It feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good. Yeah.
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 Is
It
that
feels
something that
the
you
same.
feel like is yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Is that something you feel like is something that, as you go and approach these situations again, in your future state, in your ideal
Mhm.
situation, that, how would you remind yourself then? How would you remind yourself
Mm.
of this insight as you go into future situations?
I literally would say maybe success is determined by how much fun you have.
Yeah. So that sounds like a great
Right.
affirmation for yourself.
Yeah. 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 So I
Hmm.
think that's like, yeah, good way to look at it. But then sometimes like then I also beat myself up like, am I having enough fun? Like it's like that whole
Yeah.
like, you know,
Right.
perfectionism thing.
Right.
But I think it's a good start. It's a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just like being different, it's a strength, not a weakness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's very I resonate with that. It is
Mm,
something I'll just comment on from my end is that,
mhm,
there's um expressing that fun and joy
mm.
can also be difficult for our
Right.
community, for our culture
Yes.
when we're not
Yeah.
allowed to, you know, express
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
how for you,
Mhm.
what would what does that look like then? How could you be authentic in expressing your joy and your
Mm.
level of fun?
Yeah. I think really not caring what other people think is really important. Because then I can be carefree and not like what is the standard of fun? Do we even have to evaluate what
Right.
fun means? Like, you know what I mean? But because like I guess with just blaming it on our culture, that everything is so like you have to be a certain way. Even having fun, you have to like
Yeah.
compete with other people. It's like,
Yeah.
really? Like, there's no measurement here. It's just like
Yeah.
whatever you like, and just enjoying the moment. If you don't feel like it, you don't feel like it. If you feel like it, you feel like it. Like, that's the way it is, right? And feelings are like waves. They come and go, and they might not be constant. And it's just kind of honoring ourselves, that it's okay to feel a range of emotions, coming back to emotional intelligence, and that acceptance of, um and acceptance, sorry, what you resist persists. So it's almost like the more you don't deny yourself from feeling a certain emotion, the
Mm,
more it'll linger, right? So, like,
mm,
linking back to, in my head, if I keep focusing on, like, no, no, am I doing enough or whatever, then I'm just like literally
mm,
frozen, then I'm not having fun in the moment, and just like then eventually that energy can be felt by other people, right?
mhm,
Kind of
mhm.
thing.
That sounds like a yeah, that sounds like a pretty big insight for you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the fact that your thoughts affect your emotions, and that starts
Yes.
showing up in your behaviors.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
so yeah, so when you start feeling those insecurities, the comparison that's happening, not being enough and measuring up,
Mhm.
what are the thoughts that contribute to that, and what are the thoughts that you'd like to have instead?
I see. So what are it's the original thought, and how can I reframe that?
Yeah.
Um, so original thought are usually always stemming from not good enough, right? Like the
Yeah.
unworthiness. And I would reframe it to, what is the different way of looking at how I can contribute value, right? So, like, for example, I am not smart enough or not professional enough, right? That's the first limiting belief, whatever. And then kind of reframing it to, I have a lot of life experiences and stories to give.
Yeah.
And that's a different way to approach value, I guess.
Great.
Right. Another one is like, okay, I might not be good at bantering, but then the other part is like, but I can be good at listening,
Mm,
and people like to be heard,
mm,
and people like to talk about themselves,
mm,
and that's also a value. So it's just kind of like seeing value at different places and not prioritize one over the other,
mhm.
because everyone had different roles to play, and we don't have to be good at everything. Uh, Really helps, I guess, reframe that situation in my mind.
How that so how did you appreciate those reframes for yourself?
Yeah, I think it's really helpful, actually. Yeah, so it's kind of like now remembering to do that in real
Yeah,
life.
right.
It's like, whenever I feel triggered or like an anxiety starts to come up, it's like feel in my body, where does it sit? Like usually in my chest, there's like a tightness in my chest, a burning sensation, whatever.
Yep.
Feel it, allow it, let it pass. And then what are the thoughts that are coming up in my head? And then it's like tell myself it's okay, and then like reframe it.
Yeah.
And then I guess, and it also takes practice. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it right
Of
away,
course.
to like take away that anxiety or whatever. But it's just like, let's experiment this, like, for the next time with when this comes up. And I guess the more I practice, the better I'll get.
Yeah.
And understanding that a lot of people have social anxiety too, I think.
Right.
So
Exactly. I think that that's the
yeah,
other um, perspective shift as well, is that you're not alone in having these
right.
feelings, and again, I appreciate
Yeah.
you for opening up here, because I'm sure that so many can relate. I know I do. Um, I did get curious though, when
Mm.
you're thinking about wanting to even show value in the first place, and so it's
Mm,
important to it's what you did was like reframing what type of value you're showing, but I'm
right.
curious, like, why do you need to show value in the first place?
Mm. I think that's again the proving I need to be good enough again.
Yeah.
Like, it's like if I'm not giving value, that means I'm not appreciated,
Mm,
or that it then why am I there? Like almost in a way. It,
Do you
yeah,
feel that with others if they're not showing value for being
no,
there?
no. So it's a double standard. Like I have a stricter standard with myself than others.
Hmm.
But but I also don't always give value either. Like, I think that's a good point because it's kind of like, why do I have to even give value in the first place? And when I do that, and when I fixate on that, then that's where the anxiety comes in. But when I actually don't think about it, then whatever comes out in the moment is more natural, more spontaneous, more authentic. I naturally will give value as a byproduct.
Right.
Right. Instead
Yeah.
of like fixating on that thought. That's a really good point.
Hmm.
Yeah, love that.
Let that take it in,
Thinking
maybe.
for a bit.
Maybe
Yeah,
breathe into that.
yeah, yeah.
How if you were to take a breath for that, actually,
Mhm,
you wanna try that real
mhm.
quick?
Yeah.
So just, thinking about why provide value in the first place and
Mm.
just read that in.
I was trying to, I
Mm.
think, validate my existence, but I don't have to. Like, who I am is already enough, right?
Mm.
That. Even though I'm saying it, but sometimes I still feel the insecurity.
Of course, but now you recognize feeling it,
Right.
right? You feel that insecurity, and that's a feeling.
Mhm.
It's part of being human,
Yeah.
and there's a thought that's usually associated to it.
Mhm.
What is the other thought that you'd like to have?
Mm.
You
Right,
know?
right. What is the other thought I would like to have? Would be like, being me is enough. Like, I don't have to prove anything, is the other thought. And
Is
so do
there
you breathe
Yeah.
through that? Like, when you reframe, is there a certain ritual that you do?
Um, it's part of affirmations that,
Mm,
that is part of the breathing, right?
right.
So, um, that's where a lot of times we'll say things, we'll have these insights, but we
Yeah,
don't feel fully connected to it.
that's the thing. Yeah.
And that's where breathing in has
Mm,
to, or is helpful in that,
mm,
where now that you've reframed it and created a new
yeah,
thought for
right.
yourself,
Yeah.
you know, if you can breathe that in to really absorb the words that you're saying
Okay. I see. Interesting. And integrate it.
and really, in a way, it's visualizing, it's just connecting to a different source within
Mm,
yourself,
mm,
right? Um, so if you are imagining
mhm.
yourself
Yeah,
with that affirmation that you are enough, you don't have to prove anything.
right.
What how does that feel in your body if you were to let go of all the other critiques and questions about it? If
You
you
see,
really
that's what I
absorb
was doing. I was critiquing
Exactly,
myself.
exactly, yep, yep.
I
So
was
if
like,
you
"No bullshit. I don't believe you."
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I feel that, yeah.
Oh, you're
So
like, "Huh?"
that's okay, that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you continue absorbing and accepting that you don't have to prove anything, what does that feel like?
It's interesting because my body keeps fighting it.
Mhm.
It keeps saying like, "That is bullshit." Yeah.
So let's face it, let's name it. What does that feel like then? Where is that bullshit coming from?
Good question. Where is that coming from?
Or what does it feel like within, if there's anything in the body, if you have any, is there any part that's shaking or any tension
Hmm.
within your body?
That's so good. It is more in my sacral area, like lower abdomen like area. um, it's almost like it wants to fight it. Like there's a defense mechanism. It's
Yeah.
like to say like, no, you're not, like type of thing. But then I'm slowly dissolving it. I'm almost like getting to a point. I'm like starting to laugh, like to be like, yeah, you're enough. But I'm like fighting with myself that you're not, and I'm like just laughing at myself for not listening to it. If that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I'm slowly dissolving to actually understand and integrate it, but I can't say I'm there yet. So do I keep breathing?
You can, yeah. And just it feels uncomfortable, right? As
Mhm,
you
mhm.
continue breathing. I
Yeah,
can I can see that even taking that breath maybe creates more
right.
of that feeling.
Oh, create more of the discomfort
Well,
or
I
whatever
that was
feeling it is coming up?
yeah, that was maybe too much of an assumption on my end, but, as you're breathing in, like, is there a sense of it still continue fighting back as you continue breathing?
I see what you mean. It is slowly dissolving. Interesting. So you just keep going.
Hmm,
That's a very good point because I usually stop at 1 to 2 breaths.
yeah,
I don't keep going. Mm. So it's
yeah,
almost like I'm just now like rationalizing this. When you are breathing, you'll be like bullshit, and then it's like keep breathing. Bullshit. Is it
mhm,
quieter? Oh, okay. And then it's like quieter and quieter, and then it's like, oh, okay, maybe you're right. All right, okay. Like it kind of keep breathing and keep fighting, not fighting it, but keep persisting,
yeah,
um, and to let it slowly dissolve
embracing
and
it
integrating
and
in your body. Oh, I love that.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and you can maybe spend time, by yourself
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
continue reading that outside of
Mm.
the session here. But it sounds like that was pretty big insight for you.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, it's huge actually. Interesting. That persists through the discomfort and the resistance.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Just keep going, even through a feeling. And
Hmm.
it will get quieter. Your mind will get quieter over time. Hmm.
And that's a big part of the practice for sure, right? When
Mm.
there's any, especially with our emotions and our feelings, that the discomfort we see as a defense mechanism,
Mhm.
and the first instinct is to stop it, to stop feeling
Mm.
that discomfort, to protect ourselves,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So to um but doing too much of that is turns into suppression, repression, and it's always going to come back as we approach the new situations,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. That's so true. Especially in the Asian community, we do that a
Yeah,
lot.
right.
Yeah. And
So
sometimes it comes back like tenfold, the passive
mhm,
aggressiveness.
right, right.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. Okay. So again, it just feeling the emotions as they are, and when they dissipate and dissolve, then the thoughts usually are not as powerful in our mind. And then in the situation where, say, I'm anxious or whatever, I need to people please, then I kind of now that the power of the emotion is gone, that I'm able to reframe better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what, yeah, when you feel those emotions initially, you're going to have
Mhm.
initial thoughts that exacerbate those emotions, right?
Mm.
And so if you practice building that muscle to
Mhm.
embrace that emotion, regardless of how uncomfortable it is,
Right.
from that place it starts dissipating. You can start creating new thoughts for yourself.
Mm.
And
Amazing.
once you have new thoughts, you have new emotions, you've reframed or new perspective on that emotion, at least. It might even feel the same,
Okay.
right? A lot of time anxiety can
Yeah.
be excitement. A lot of times
Mhm. Yes, yes,
anger
yes.
is a drive, is a motivation, right?
Mm.
So every emotion um, has different thoughts that can have a different perspective of what that emotion means.
Oh,
We create our own meanings around
yeah.
our emotions.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I really love that. So then the power is in your hands. It's like
Hmm.
whatever emotions that come up for you, you can just reframe it in a way that serves you.
Right. Exactly. That's
Mm.
a huge part of what emotional intelligence is, for sure. Thanks for saying that. I think that's it's how to use your emotions for you rather than against you, right?
Mm.
Um, and so having that said, in the last few minutes, do you, after, when you have those thoughts that reframes the emotion, is there an action now? Is there behavior or maybe even inaction, right? So sometimes you don't even have to do anything,
Mhm.
but what is an action or inaction that you'd like to that you could do with these emotions then?
Mm. Okay, so for the example of like the social anxiety thing, say for example,
Yeah.
um, it's literally just show up and have fun, or even turn or okay, so I also heard this thing, it's like focus outwards, right? Like, so because I was internalizing so much that it's always about
Mm.
me, but at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about the whole dynamic,
Yeah.
the whole situation, and just having fun. And honestly, nobody even cares most of the time. And so it's like instead of like the action of thinking about what I'm feeling and the insecurities, it's about how about I ask other people questions, get curious with what they are like, and observe and enjoy the moment when I'm focusing out instead of in. That takes my ego away, um,
Yeah.
and I think that's more productive to actually get more information as well.
Great.
Yeah,
Great. That
so I
sounds
think
very tangible for sure.
yeah. So I think that's
Yeah.
what I'll do. Yeah,
And
amazing.
to solidify that more is,
Mm,
it sounds like having fun is important to you.
mhm.
Um, what does fun look like for you? How can you, enjoy that process more for yourself?
I think what makes me really happy is progress. And this is like a bit selfish, but progress in realizing my true potential, or like what I'm growing and how I'm discovering more of myself or being more
Yeah.
authentically me. So almost kind of like observing other people, like say in the environment, and be like, oh, do I even like that? Like it's almost like a self-discovery process. Or it's like, oh, if I act this way, or if they act this way, oh, this certain emotion comes out. Oh, this is cool. I just learned something about me, or I learned something about them. And that actually is fun for me.
Yeah.
And so in every moment then when I'm with people, it's actually interestingly better than being with myself, because I won't be able to have that mirror back at me. uh,
Mm,
Only interactions are able to draw certain aspects of me out, and so now this actually makes a social interaction more exciting
that's
than
amazing.
a dread. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Hmm. That sounds so powerful for you
Yeah,
to
yeah.
reframe that as well, right?
Right, right, right. Yeah, to be like, "Oh, actually, now I can learn more about myself and others and have more fun," and yeah,
Yeah, in the
yeah.
context of others. So it sounds like it's more fun for you
Mhm.
to be able to see yourself in different situations, in different people,
Yeah,
regardless of how smart they are,
right,
where they are, how you measure up to them,
right,
how much you're trying to please them,
right.
right?
Yeah,
That that
yeah.
you look at, there's something to learn
Mhm, mhm. Exactly,
for
and that's
yourself, about
all that
them,
matters.
or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 100%. I love it. This is great. It's awesome. Just in a very short time, like 30 minutes, we're already
Yeah,
able to tease all of that out.
yeah,
It's amazing.
great.
Thank you, Victor.
How do
That's
you feel
great.
now? Do you feel complete?
Yeah,
Is
I
there
do feel a lot better for sure. I think it's just having the tools. I think I still have to practice. So
course.
when the moments comes, the triggers will always come back because it's such an ingrained pattern. But it's just like, okay, are the steps now, right? It's like, okay, this feeling's coming up, feeling my body breathe more than I usually
Yeah.
do, right? A few
Yeah.
more times until it actually dissipate. I guess observing that thought that is associated with that feeling, and when that emotion dissipate, what is a new thought that I can kind of almost reprogram,
Yeah.
and then from there, just seeing like different angles of it, right? It's like, now what can I get out of this, and what can, instead of what do I have to do to please other people, what can I get out of this? Like,
What instead
my
of having to
experience.
provide the value,
Exactly, exactly.
how can you enjoy that process?
That,
What can you
exactly.
learn and have fun with?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 And by doing that, sometimes it's just sitting back and observing people. That's
Mhm.
actually fun as well.
Yeah.
And that's
Which
already feedback that's coming in. Yeah.
which is what I heard before too when you mentioned that, you the reframe of instead of having to be witty or to have the conversation, that you are the one to listen, that you can
Right.
sit back and be observant as well. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. And that's also a value that you can give to others. And even if it's not a value, I'm having fun because I'm observing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Great.
That's amazing. I'm curious too, just to learn about you. Like, where did you learn all this? Like, and how you got into emotional intelligence in the first place? Should
Yeah,
have introduced this earlier.
I know.
Got too excited. Like, let's.
Exactly. Uh, we got right into it, of course. Um, I will answer that, but I want to ask one more in when you're thinking about, you know, in the next situations, right, as you come up to it, that it having this type of conversation now, like with all the frameworks, it's easy to then
Yeah.
still let that get in our minds and overthink
Right.
about, oh, this is the step I have to do. I have to do it this way. Like this is
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
And so as you're approaching the next situation, just really tap into what's going on in your body. What are
yeah.
you feeling? What either sensations you're feeling around, not just in your head, but in other areas of your body, and
Mhm,
be able to use that as a way to connect
mhm.
back to an emotion, right?
Right.
And then to then see it in a different light.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. It's true
Uh,
because
uh,
it's like otherwise it's like, oh, here's a checklist, and then I get like, oh, here we go,
yep,
let's do all these things
exactly.
again, and then it
Exactly.
doesn't help with the anxiety, obviously.
Hmm.
Yeah.
we're
Mm.
we're very top heavy creatures,
Yeah.
we like to think through everything, and we forget to tap into the intelligence that is outside of our just
Mm.
intellectual minds, but within our
Yeah.
body, within our emotions. So
Mm. That's
um
amazing. Hmm.
yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and to answer your
Yeah,
question
yeah.
then about how I got into it,
Yeah.
um I I I don't know where do I even start. I think, like, there's a natural gravitation for me um to be observant
Mm.
about emotions, not
Okay.
only especially within others, but
Mm.
it was interesting that I kind of lacked that within myself, you know
Mm.
um so eh, I guess one aspect of it for me is that my um you know I've was around a lot of conflict growing up. My
Mm.
parents argued all the time, my grandparents bickered, they even like even in my own relationships there was just a lot of miscommunication that
Mm.
was creating a lot of conflict, um and so I was very observant of others, but not really of myself, in how
Mm.
I was um, reacting to
Mm.
these situations, right? And so, yeah, over time, I've noticed, in the workplace, not having that identity of my, or not being able to name my emotions was
Mm.
holding me back from also asserting myself,
Yeah.
from not just people pleasing, right? Not just avoiding conflict to create harmony
Mhm.
within the group, within my parents, within right the workplace, within my dating relationships. Um, and and so I found that I was a common denominator in like
Mm,
I don't know exactly what I'm feeling or how to communicate that, how to
mm,
really like express that without feeling weak or too sensitive, or that I have to man up, or that,
yeah.
that it's that I had to be this model minority perfectionist,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
So a lot of culture, a lot of realizing that my Asian culture and my idea of what it means to be a man held me back from really looking at myself.
mhm,
Um and so yeah, and at the same time looking at the environment around me in
mhm.
terms of how supportive that was, right? In the
Yeah,
workplace, I
and
did not feel safe enough to
right,
be myself. As a
yeah,
consultant, you gotta like show this, expertise, or this is whatnot. And I, agree. Like, obviously, we need to be experts in our field,
right.
but there was just no space to be human. And so
Mm,
I and so yeah, I left the corporate world, and then started writing, started really looking at myself, doing a lot of soul searching and identity,
yeah,
um, and and learned how to really connect with my own emotions, and a lot of what we talked about here in like connecting to a different source,
yeah,
right? To get out of my head a little bit,
mhm,
and tap into like, what is this energy? What is this
mhm,
spirit, or whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
right? And because I'm was raised a very left-brained, logical
mhm, mhm,
person, and didn't really tap into these other forms of
yeah,
intelligence. And uh and so, you know uh yeah, that was a big realization for me in terms of what I felt was missing, and then I just decided to lean into it. And even though it's really uncomfortable, and I still struggle, of course, like many other humans, even as I call myself an EQ coach. But um, I've seen so much progress in myself and for those of others, through it. So, yeah, that's a quick story, I
yeah,
guess.
that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. That's really inspirational, actually. Like for you to, first of all, being aware of, you know, yourself not having maybe as much knowledge and experience around emotional intelligence, and taking the steps to actually go through that discomfort and learn it, and to now you helping other people, right?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing like feat that a lot of us are still denying, especially in the Asian community, and just because we don't know what we don't know.
Right,
To
right,
even unveil the first part of awareness, that's like the hardest thing. So I
right.
definitely commend you for doing that and now helping the community.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Yeah,
really.
and actually that's a great point too, in that like it's really just vocabulary, right? It's a language
Mhm,
that I've started to see this as,
mhm.
like almost like it's like I'm being more bilingual in
Yes,
in
I like
in
that.
English, right? Like having
Okay.
another.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That's
And
true.
so, and that's where a lot of our immigrant parents, just doesn't have the language to
That's
talk
right.
about it. Like,
That's right.
we care about it, of course. We're mindful, in a lot of ways. We just don't know
Mhm.
how to communicate it with each other. So,
Yes, and
um,
that spills over to all areas of your life.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
In relationships or even, like, rising up the corporate ladder,
Yep,
sometimes we can work hard all we want, right? And then produce results, but it's in between the connections, the interactions, that's when people believe you
exactly,
and trust you, and you can lead the team, based on emotional intelligence and competence, obviously, but competence alone is not enough.
exactly. And again, that's that model minority
Yeah,
culture that we
yeah,
absorbed, right? Like, oh, we'll just study, we'll just get the good grades, we'll just keep our head down, do what we're told, and we'll achieve success. But um, you could be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't communicate with others or express yourself, or or assert that you know that that awareness, then it you know it's difficult to achieve the
Yeah.
success that you want.
No,
So
for sure,
yeah.
for sure. Yeah, that's amazing. And I know a lot of Asian men especially have, difficulty around it, and you actually help, you have a platform, so if you wanna, like, share what you
Yeah.
do as well?
Yeah, thanks for yeah, so, definitely a lot of my own journey realized that a lot of Asian culture as well as my idea of masculinity had kept me back from it, and so, finding that I'm not the only one, that this isn't even just about me, that this is so much bigger than myself. I feel like I've been called to support my other Asian brothers to do this work as well, without the judgment, without the bias from our families or with society, um, and so yeah, there's a few other platforms. One, so I'm one of the admins for a Facebook group called the Badass Asian Dudes, where we are empowering self-identifying Asian males with emotional intelligence. Um, there's enough high achieving, high performing men out there. It's time for more emotionally intelligent men, like you were saying. And so under that, I've created the Emotion Dojo, which is a
Mm.
men's group, which we do a lot of what we talked about in this session here, is
Oh,
really having that space to communicate and naming those emotions. I have a 3-step process in um, awareness. Like what we did is naming those emotions and then accepting it, knowing that it's part of human, and then developing an action. What can we do with it now? How can we use that for us, to work for us, and help us move forward and develop deeper relationships, create more fulfillment in our life, create more purpose or connection to our purpose. Um, and so we do that in a group setting, and go through different prompts,
wow,
talking through Asian identity, talking through
that's
what it
amazing.
means to be a man, talking through about our role models, about how our fathers, what influenced us and how
Yes.
we make decisions,
Mhm, mhm.
how we've shown up in our dating with
Yeah.
other men or other women,
Mhm.
um, and uh, and
Oh, this
and
is so
yeah,
needed. So
yes.
needed
So
in this
thank
space.
you. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
And
really
then
appreciate that.
yep.
Yeah,
So yeah, and you can learn more at badassasiandudes.com, or victorung.com is my own website as well. So
perfect.
kind of doing
Yeah.
cross collaboration in different communities. Yeah.
And what kind of social media do you have? Is it
Yeah,
Facebook?
we are on Facebook. The Badass Asian Dudes is a Facebook group,
Right.
with over 1,200 members now,
Wow,
and
congratulations.
yeah, it's
Yay.
great.
Yeah.
It's all organic, which we
Oh,
love. And then and we have our Instagram as well, Badass Asian
amazing.
Dudes
Mm, mm.
official.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So you can find us there. And we also have a podcast available on all different streaming platforms,
Yeah.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google, etc. So
And that's
yeah.
also under Badass Asian Dudes, right?
Yep.
The podcast? Okay.
Yep.
Amazing. Awesome. More men
Yeah.
needs to do this work.
Yeah.
I
For sure.
mean, everyone needs to do this work, but,
Everyone does. Yep.
yeah. Yeah, we need to do our own part. Like, we're just talking about relationships, 'cause it's almost like we have to be a complete person on each side in order to, build a beautiful, healthy relationship, right? But a
Yeah.
lot of times we are not even aware of our trauma or what we're projecting onto
Mhm.
other people, then how can we then come together as a whole and complete person? So this inner work is all about that. And
Yeah.
so thank you for creating that platform.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
it's
for having
amazing.
me. This was
Yeah,
amazing. And
it's
yeah,
been
it was
amazing. Yeah.
I'm glad
I
that
learned
it
so much.
yeah, that it's really cool. It's that you could be an example for people, and show
Oh,
your
thank
own
you so much.
vulnerability. So
Oh,
really appreciate that.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
And, we have a, viewer here from Hong Kong, all the way from Hong Kong, and it's
Hello.
like, what, 4 AM over there, so
Yeah. Thank you for watching.
yeah, amazing. Thank you again, guys, and until next Friday.
All right.
See ya.